Friends, today we continue with Jake and the Hobo, My Summer of Love. I know it's backwards, but that's okay. You'll figure it out. Jake and the Hobo, My Summer of Love. There is a way to make that not do that, but I don't know. But today I would like to read you from page 163. In this journal so far of Jake and the Hobo, it's the story of a 16-year-old girl fleeing an abusive family in Black Mountain, West Virginia. And she flees, and in the middle of the night, and then in the morning time, finds by the side of the road a hobo, Good Samaritan, veteran, who travels with his dog Socrates in his Airstream 310 RV that is hand-built, and they begin this journey of discovery, of redemption, of forgiveness. And so today, as we pick up on page 163 of our daily readings, it is in northern Vermont where they are making the Airstream 310 that eventually became known as Emma Goldman. And it says 5 workers in spray mask and suits had bought gallons of a special light ceramic paint that had been mixed up excuse me, in a chemistry lab at UVM. The volunteers meticulously cleaned the exterior, and at last the layers of light yellow ceramic paint were applied. Then we waited overnight to see what it would look like in the sun. The following morning, as the sun rose, we took off the tape and wrapping off of Emma. Erasmus said, "I was afraid it would turn into some disaster, but with Sojourner and Caleb at the helm, it was perfect." We gently wheeled her out to the meadow as the last shroud and wrapping were taken off. Sunlight bathed Emma, and it was a golden yellow with sparkles of glass coating and splashes of purple, orange, and dashes of emerald. Everyone gasped as the sunlight bathed our beauty. I would have sprayed automotive paint, but truly no words can describe this. It's not too bright to blind other drivers, but a golden hue with many splashes of sunlight. With help, we painted the outline of Emma Goldman dancing on the side, along with her famous quote, "If I can't dance, I don't want to be part of your revolution." Thus, said Erasmus, this was the start of a love affair with dear Emma. Wow, Erasmus, that is some story. Well, he said, we're still an hour from Lake Charles. Why don't you drive? Although I had driven Emma Goldman on the road once before, this was still a terrifying proposition. But Erasmus's confidence quieted my doubts. I did all the things I was supposed to do, like checking the mirrors, and soon we were rolling. Erasmus said, "Keep going. You're driving like a champ." Lake Charles passed in a haze. The smell of the refineries with the thick black clouds of sulfur hung in the air, and I felt like I was breathing heavier. We rolled up the windows and turned on the air conditioner. This is Louisiana at its worst intersection of racism, pollution, politics, and the insatiable greed and collusion of the oil and chemical companies. Erasmus said as we were driving down the highway that he called Cancer Alley. This is one of the poorest parts of the state, he said, with all these chemicals pouring out of the smokestacks, terrible things like chloride, benzene, dioxins, and all the residue from the refineries. I sometimes feel hopeless about humanity when I see this crazy stuff. I said, it's like Black Mountain, with all the chemicals polluting the water, the sludge from the mines, and the land's barren. We drove through Lake Charles. I wish we could take all the people away from this misery. Refineries were to my right with flames coming out of the gas stacks. Poor broken-down wooden shacks surrounded them. Yet within a few miles of the refinery and plants, the Gulf of Mexico and the beaches beckoned. This is the paradox of Lake Charles. It has its beautiful bayous, rivers, and the Gulf, but the factories and refineries keep pouring out this toxic brew. Despite the horrible pollution, it was smooth sailing across the Louisiana line into Texas. Another first for me, reaching Texas. Erasmus took out his guitar and started singing, "Deep in the heart of Texas." Some Socrates was snoozing contentedly between us. Galveston welcomed us with its wide, sunny smile and warm, sultry breezes. I wanted to jump in the Gulf and swim all the way to Mexico, but I would settle for a little splash in the water. We came down to the waterfront and parked in the shade. I loved the sound of the Gulf and the palm trees swaying by the ocean front. Though it wasn't quite the ocean, I had the feeling I was swimming in the Pacific. I hoped when Erasmus felt better we would find our way out to California. He often spoke of his time there with great fondness and sadness. We had some burritos and roasted corn by the pleasure pier. Erasmus said, "Let me tell you about how Roshi, Jim, and I met Sojourner. With Socrates nestling between us, Erasmus told me this story. Galveston reminds me of Venice Beach, where Jim and I were lost until we found Sojourner. She was a strikingly lovely lady with dark brown hair tied with ribbons, sitting on a bench and drumming. Jim and I were walking past, and she said, 'What took you boys so long to show up?' 'Miss, I think you have us mistaken for somebody else,' I said. She looked at me. 'Take off your sunglasses, open your eyes, and remember who you are. In Venice Beach, you meet strange people.' Jim said to me, 'You don't know her, do you?' 'No, but she seems so familiar. We've been drinking a lot, but I would have remembered somebody as beautiful as her. I'll meet you back at the apartment. I want to go back and talk to her.' I walked back to where she had been sitting, but she was gone. The next day and the following one, I showed up at the same spot around the same time, but I couldn't find her. I looked all the way down the pier, all the way down to Venice, and the longer I looked, the more I knew I needed to find her. Jim said to me, 'There are plenty of other women around. Why would you get hung up on this one? She's pretty, but I think she's stuck up. Let's get some weed and light up for sunset.' 'No, I'm going to look for her.' Finally, after a week, we found her again. She looked at us. 'Are you two ready to begin?' Jim said, 'What do you mean, begin? Like to drum, or should we go out and party?' He winked. 'You boys have been boys for long enough. It's time for you to live up to your true Dharma.' Jim asked, 'What do you mean, Dharma?' 'I heard of the book Dharma Bumps.' And she looked at us clearly. 'You're lost, and need to find your real path. Are you ready?' The wind shifted and a storm cloud rolled in from the ocean. It started to rain, and she covered her drum with a tarp. 'My name is Sojourner. I'm a drummer and a healer. I have a small house nearby for yoga and healing. I've been waiting for you two. Something told me that I needed to help both of you get back on your path. You have more important things to do in life than drinking, drugging, and being party animals. Are you ready?' I was shocked as I looked at her and her lustrous brown eyes. It suddenly hit me as if somebody had slapped me upside the head that she was right. Suddenly, I found myself sitting beside her and crying. She held me close. Over the next month, Sojourner helped Jim and I get sober. Every morning we would meet on the beach in Santa Monica at sunrise, do yoga, and run. I said, 'I still find it impossible to believe that you and Roshi, Jim, were such derelicts.' 'Yes, that's the word. You two were bums, drunken, stoned bums wandering. It's nothing like you two.' That was the weirdest thing. You're right, Jake. I felt like some cosmic intervention suddenly came down and woke both of us up. And that divine intervention was Sojourner. How she found us, how she knew we had another destiny, is still beyond me. I feel the same way about Sojourner. She has an incredible wisdom and kindness. Erasmus said, yes, that is all true, but she also has a toughness and a steely resolve that transforms everybody around her. But there is nothing ostentatious in the way that she does it. Like when we started Dignity Village, her vision, skill, and wisdom brought it forward, and she had the sweat and guts to make it happen. Too many of us have a dream of what we would like to do, but most times it never materializes. She has the true mystic calling. Feet rooted in the ground and spirit in the heavens. I don't get that, Erasmus. What do you mean? She has ancient Cherokee wisdom and a very pragmatic way of making things happen, and is incredibly smart. A visionary may have an idea, but it's a very rare person who can take that idea and make it real. In a way, she made Jim and me. We were these broken down veterans wallowing in our pity and pain, and somehow she saw through this. Many of the people you've met, like Marty and Liz, have also been touched by her grace. How so? Well, this is where the story gets even weirder, he said. Through a long and strange journey, Marty and Liz met Sojourner years ago in New Orleans. This is how the story gets strange, according to Liz. Liz told me she and Marty were by the broken down pier where a woman was drumming at sunset. They didn't pay any attention since there are so many musicians in New Orleans. She stopped drumming and said to Marty and Liz, "Hello, please sit with me and enjoy the sunset." She drummed, and finally, as the sun was setting to Mississippi, she said, "You two seem like you're ready to take the next step. What do you think?" Marty and Liz looked at each other and knew at that moment what they needed to do. All their attachments to their religious vocations, and most importantly their fears, simply vanished. They turned and asked her, "What should we do next?" And she took out a small mirror from her bag and held it in front of them. The answer is quite clear as she pointed the mirror to them. They wrote their resignation letters to the Catholic Church. They found an empty warehouse across the street from St. Xavier on Dauphine Street. The church was furious with them for leaving and tried to cut them off without money, but Marty and Liz were in love. Nothing could stop them, but they couldn't find Sojourner again. A year later, she walked into their place that became the Church of Love. Sojourner had a van full of herbs, potions, and such. She said, "If you like, I can make a small herbal pharmacy and show you how to use it." Marty and Liz had never heard of plants as medicine, but Sojourner, with friends, made the herbal medicines in Dignity Village and would come down with apprentices every 6 months to teach and restock the pharmacy. That evening, we hung out by the waterfront in Galveston. We found a food truck with vegan burritos and sat down to watch the sunset with Socrates. The next day, Erasmus had to see a specialist, Dr. Swami Vinda, but tonight it was only the three of us watching the enchanted evening sunset. Erasmus took out his guitar and we started playing near the burrito truck. I had a tambourine and I was singing all of our favorite songs. I put down my hat on the bench, and after a few songs it started to fill up with money. "Jake, since we made all this money, go over to Juan at the burrito truck and give it to him for those homeless people sitting over there." A homeless man and a child were sitting nearby, and after Juan brought them the food that we had paid for, they walked over to us. "Thank you, mister. We appreciate your kindness." The man said, "We had been renting a house for a long time, and the new owner took over, and before we knew it, we were out on the street. We have our van and some friends we're going to stay with in San Antonio. Your kindness of dinner and song lifted our spirits. Can I play a song for you?" Erasmus said, "Sure thing. Play us a song." He sang us folk songs like La Bamba. The hat filled up again. We gave more money to Juan, and he said, "There are no more homeless people who need burritos tonight. You keep the money." I said, "Sadly, there will be more homeless people who need food. I know you give what you can, but Erasmus and I want to give you some extra money to cover your costs. Miss, if more people were as kind as you and Erasmus, the world would be a far better place." And in this story on coming up to Galveston, and it is the intentional acts of kindness and charity that transforms the world. I truly believe that. I believe, and what I think it comes through in my book, is the highest calling in life, besides taking care of yourself, is to be of service. And to me, this is what is personified in this book, Jake and the Hobo. It's about being of service to yourself, to your community, to your family. Though it may not always appear that way, I believe that all of our work, in whatever small or big way we can, through community service, through our work, through our volunteerism, through whatever action we can in the small ways, is to be of service. And so this story of Jake and the Hobo and the way they've navigated, I look at that as part of the journey. And even though that I wrote it, it's based on my experiences in a variety of ways. Many years ago, I was traveling out west, and I was traveling in a van. And in the morning, I would go into the truck stop and wash up, etc., like this. And when I came out, everything was fine. And then a man came over to me and gave me some money. And he said, "The Lord told me to give you that, to give you some money." And I was touched by that. I made no connection with him before, but he just, out of the kindness of his heart or whatever conviction, gave me some money. I thought that's beautiful. And I hope all of us remember these lessons of kindness and charity and love that have graced our lives. Thank you. Namaya out. And we will pick up with Jake and the Hobo, My Summer of Love, tomorrow. Good night now. Good night, Karen.